Are you a successful IT professional and need help optimizing your compensation plan, navigating your taxes, investments, and protection? It's time to rewire and retire with Mike. Listen in as Mike gets you the answers you need to move forward. Now, on to the show with Mike.
Hello and welcome to Rewire and Retire with Mike Guarino. Mike, how are you?
Eric, I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. I'm just living life and summer's here and it's coming in like summer, really hot. But it's sunny. It's nice to get outside. I don't tan, I burn. So, that's always fun. I just have to lather up and sunscreen like crazy.
Yeah, we've been blessed with really, really nice weather for the last 4 or 5 days here.
Yeah.
So, everybody has the cabin fever because of COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
People are going outside now. So it's a really cool time to be coming out of your cave, so to speak, out of hibernation and just having some slamming weather to enjoy. It's just been incredible. Like 75, 80 during the day.
Oh, geez.
Then at night it gets down to 60. It's just perfect.
Oh, yeah. No, we've been at 95, 96, and it's a little hot for me personally.
I'll say.
I'm kind of a wuss, so whatever. Hey, we are in this mini series that you've put together, and it's all about the benefits of financial planning. And a lot of people have taken advantage of the time that they've been kind of cooped away and make phone calls. I know that people have been reaching out to you, but even as people kind of start to dehibernate, if you will, and come out of their nests, they may be looking around going, oh, you know what? I probably should have called during this time, but I can still make that phone call. Or maybe now I want to go meet in person when we're able to. I don't know how released you guys are in your area to be able to do that, but people need to be thinking about this, and that planning needs to be happening sooner rather than later, because without a plan, then you can't achieve things that you want to achieve.
That's right. What's the old saying goes, if you've failed to plan, you've planned to fail. So
Exactly.
I as cliche and cheesy as that may sound, I 100% agree with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So in this mini series, you have 10 points, and we're doing 2 points per podcast pretty much, and we're right about in the middle. I think we're on number 5 and 6. So where do we start today?
Exciting stuff. So we'll go over 5, which is having a plan in place will allow you to measure your progress on your goals. And 6, we'll talk about finding new ways to maximize your money, which is always eye-opening, I like to think.
Yeah, and helpful. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, let's dive in.
Sure. So you already kind of put the ball in the tee, so I'll take a shot at hitting it straight down the fairway, which I wish my golf game was doing lately, but that's a whole different story. I seem to have this slice that I never had before lately, and I'm just driving me nuts. But
so we'll just blame it on COVID.
That's it. Yeah, it's got to be the COVID
slice.
That's it. Got to be. But my friends are playing well, which is even worse for me. So anyway. So yeah, interestingly enough, and we just talked about the cliche, if you've failed to plan, you've planned to fail. And I learned that at an early age when I used to work at UPS, loading trucks through college. It was a very tough job, and the managers would come around and ask you, how are you doing? We were part of a team there. They would always come to us as, eventually I got promoted to supervisor. And as a supervisor, you have a crew that works for you, and then your manager would come around and ask how you're doing and what was your plan for the day. And if you didn't have a plan for the day, that was not a good answer. So you had to go in every day with a plan. I'm only asking people that are listening to, have a plan that we revisit twice a year, right? Not every day. So it's a little bit out of the way that way. It doesn't get in the way. You said something earlier, Eric, I want to touch on, which is, we are getting a lot of people interested in planning, I think, and at a very good time, because the volatility in the market lately makes you really focus on goals and not necessarily on returns. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit later. But what I wanted to say was the fact that people have been, shut in for quite a while, in 2-3 months almost. And like you said, different areas are getting back to work at different paces. But we've always leveraged technology here. We've always used GoToMeeting, Zoom, Skype. We've always used that because what I like to do is be super efficient. I know my client base is very, very burdened with commitments, right? That's to say the least. They're saturated with meetings and conference calls and this and that. And they're like, Mike, I want to work with you. I just don't know if I have the time. And what I say is look, we'll do these micro meetings, right? Let's just get together real fast and collaborate on, whatever the technology that their company allows them to use or what they're using. So I have them all. So we get connected. And, we just kind of go through a little question and answer. I bring up some slides. I show them some stuff. I ask them questions. And, you just try to generate a dialogue. And then once that has been etched out, I use these micro meetings, just, again, to be, cognizant that they don't have a lot of time to focus on this. But when we break away from that, I send a follow-up email to say, Dear Eric, I thank you for your, 20 minutes on your lunch break today. I'm glad we had a chance to collaborate. Looking at where you are and what I see down the road, I think we should be tackling X, Y, and Z, right? I'll outline what we should be working on. Because a lot of IT folks are very, very, believe it or not, plan-centric. They may not realize it, but, there's always project management going on and deadlines that they have to meet. So me kind of just generating my email and sending it to them is just part and parcel with what they're used to doing, right? Here's just another list of tasks that, believe it or not, don't require a lot of time. Mm-hmm. So I use these micro meetings as a way, 15-minute, 20-minute appointments, just to start collaborating and getting things lined up. And then we start working on the plan. So now I'm going to fast forward a little bit, and I'll get into the fifth part of our mini series here, which is, a plan will allow you to measure your progress on your goals. I can't agree with that more. And quite frankly, what that means is, Eric, I think we talked about this a little bit on one of the earlier podcasts, but if you just invest money, all you're looking at are returns, right? I put my money in the, S&P index last year and I was up X percent. Okay, over a year's time frame, great. But what does that mean? And if you're just seeking returns in the market, that's not planning. Yeah. Planning gives us an outline and tells us if I do X, Y, and Z, my outcomes probability is this. So, and we always try to, use Monte Carlo simulations and things to generate an ideal kind of risk return profile for every client that we do planning for. Because everyone's goals, needs, wants, wishes, and time horizons, how much time they want to keep working or how much time that they want to spend in retirement, everybody's are different. What we do is we kind of take all these pieces together in a plan. And I always come out to tell them, look, our plan says we have to generate approximately 7% a year. I'm using this as an example, right? We have to generate 7% returns from our portfolios over year. Well, that would be great if we could just go to the bank and get a 7% CD. Financial planning is so easy that way, but interest rates stink. To get the rates of return we want right now, we have to be invested. But the last thing you want to do is be overinvested. And that's a term not a lot of people know. And when I say you're overinvested, what does that mean? I don't understand. How can I be overinvested? Overinvested in my world means you have way too much risk for what we're trying to accomplish. So planning kind of boxes us in and says, look, if we're looking for a 7% rate of return and your portfolio's, looking for a 14% rate of return, that's overinvested. You're way too aggressive for where we have to be. And again, this is not saying we're trying to be anemic with returns. We're just saying for your plan to work, we know we only need 7%. So why are you investing like you're a 14% return person when you don't have to be? So one of the things we learn a lot about when we start doing financial planning is, number one is, what is my risk profile? Number two, here's my goals, wish, wants, and needs. Number three, here's my retirement date. Number four, here's all my assets, Mike. Here's what they look like. And then we just take all those pieces and just put them together, mix them up in a bowl, throw them in the oven, bake it for a while. And I say, look, this is what you told me about yourself. This is how we look. This is what we want to do. And we can know immediately if we're on track or off track. But most importantly, I know, and I'm using this as an example, I know we only need 7% rate of return out of your portfolio from now until, the cows come home. Well, why are we invested like a 14 if we don't have to be? And those start really good conversations. And people say, I never really looked at it that way. The bottom line is, when you have a financial plan, you're measuring results. You're not measuring performance. If you're just investing, you're measuring performance. And I can't say it enough. When you tether your finances to goals, it takes a lot of stress out of your life, because rates of return don't mean anything unless they're tethered to something. And that's the clarity I try to give every client as I work them through the process of doing financial planning.
Well, and the other thing that, you briefly touched on it, but I want to drive the point home that when you have these goals, when you're looking for the outcomes of specific goals, you have a timeline, right? I mean, that when you set goals, you always have some sort of timeline associated with, whether that's retirement, whether that's looking for a job change and you want to accomplish certain things before then. Maybe it's purchasing a different house. Obviously, you have a timeline then as far as getting your current house ready and looking for a new house. There's always timelines associated with goals. And if you have a timeline, then you're able to readjust things if something goes wrong, like a big market plunge like we've experienced over the last few months. We know, okay, now that if we're going to revisit those goals and look at that timeline, is the timeline the same, or do we need to make adjustments? If you don't have timelines, and like you said, you're just investing in stocks, well, there's no timeline. How long are you going to invest in those stocks? I don't know. When I'm done, I suppose. But that's not a good answer, right? I mean, it's I'll retire when I feel like it. Okay, that's just dumb. Let's get a timeline in place so you know that if you need to pivot, you know exactly how you need to pivot.
Yeah, and that's a great way of looking at it, Eric. I couldn't agree more. And what I kind of give people the visual picture of is, in your young investing careers, that's when the plane's taking off the runway, right? It's getting all that speed to get off the ground and get up to cruising altitude. And then for the majority of your career, you're at cruising altitude, call it 35,000 feet, right? You're just there. Well, when we start coming in for a landing, and this is when we know, like to your point, using this as an analogy for, I know I'm going to retire in 10 years. Okay, so this is when the captain flips on the light, says, buckle up your belt. We're approaching, our destination. We'll be landing in, 35 minutes or whatever it is. Well, that's the best time to start working on a plan if you haven't done it already. But I would encourage everyone on that's listening to do it while you're at that cruising altitude. But going back to what you said, what you want to give people are a glide path. Right. And that's exactly what a pilot's doing. You've taken off, you've been aggressive. Now you're, at cruising altitude, just kind of keeping everything rebalanced and making sure your 401k choices are relevant and your investments are lined up. But when we start approaching our destination, meaning our goal, we have to have a glide path. It's not like you go from a stock portfolio to fixed income and cash. There's a glide path and a trajectory that every advisor and planner should be taking, that slowly unwinds those positions over time to make sure that, again, the risk-adjusted return is appropriate for the plan, but also give us a good chance of, quelling volatility later in life when we don't want to have it. And that's the idea of what you were describing. It's more like a glide path. You're exactly right.
Yeah, and the nice thing is you as a co-pilot, being there with them can make those adjustments, because I've been on planes where we're getting ready to land and we hit turbulence and the wind speed changes and all that stuff. It's not like the pilot's up there throwing his hands up going, well, that wind blew us off course, we're done. He's making adjustments. Right. You're making adjustments exactly as you go to get it, just make sure the final little things are, the flaps are where they're supposed to be, all that stuff, the speed is where it's supposed to be. Even if some turbulence comes up, even if some wind starts to try to blow you off course a little bit, and it will, you're there to be able to guide them right back on that path. So that's a beautiful thing. Love it.
Yeah. And to your point, like right now, we have a lot of people that are considering retiring this year. Just, I've had relationships with them for decades, and they're looking to retire this year. And all of a sudden we hit all this turbulence, all this volatility in the stock market. And they're like, oh my God, what do I do? You're right. We can't just slam into the runway. We got to make adjustments. And you might have to circle a little bit longer before you come down or something like that. But that's the idea, right? And not everybody knows how to fly a plane, or not everybody knows how to be a co-pilot. But the team approach is super important. Collaboration is extremely important with planning. And quite frankly, I do have clients that just invest. I have clients that invest and plan. The relationships, I have to be honest, are very deep with the people we plan for, because the conversations are different. You're not talking about what return did I get in my portfolio. It's like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, just want to let you know, we're on target to retire in 2021, despite all this volatility we've seen. Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. Are you sure? We recheck the numbers, and gives them a feeling of confidence. And the relationship's deep, because I know that Mr. and Mrs. Smith are going to retire down in Boca Raton and buy their beach house and live life the way they've always envisioned it. And it's becoming a reality. And, like I said, some of the best trips I take are when I get to go to my clients' retirement homes. It's a fantastic feeling.
Nice. Yeah. Next time you can take me, Mike. if you want. Just if you want. I'll carry your bags.
Sure. Not a problem.
Good deal.
Yep.
All right. So what's number 6? What's the next
I was
part
just going to say, time to switch gears. I think we beat that one up pretty well. But financial planning will help you find new ways to maximize your money. And I'll say that again. It will help you find new ways to maximize your money, not to be underestimated. This point is pretty big. So we get some folks that are pretty high net worth, they're in a high tax bracket. Their problems are compounded because, traditionally what I see, or typically what I see, is someone getting stock incentives and more company stock. And okay, fine. So we're high net worth. We have a lot of stock in one position. I'm going to hang on to it because if I start to unwind this position, it's going to cause me more taxes, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of folks don't realize, and if you're not maxing out your 401k, that's the easiest way to reduce your take-home pay and reduce the tax burden if you put your money in a traditional 401k. And not a lot of folks realize when they turn 50 that they have a catch-up contribution. They're like, I didn't know I could put in more. Well, you're not working with an advisor that can tell you put in more. So there's ways to get bigger tax, deferral, right? We take our money and we put more in the 401k. Therefore, I'm taking less home, provided I can live on that, obviously. Mm-hmm. Now I'm paying less in taxes because I've deferred my income into my 401k. That seems easy, right? Pretty obvious. Everybody knows about it, but not everybody knows about the after 50 years old catch-up contribution. So that's one thing I always shine a spotlight on. The other thing, too, that people don't realize is, and it's becoming way more common these days, is that there are flex spending accounts. And when I say that word to people, they just stare at me like, I've heard of that, but what is it? And how does that help me with my taxes? Mm-hmm. Well, when you max out the 401k bucket, your company may be offering you a flexible spending account, also known as an FSA, right? All these acronyms. And a lot of times it allows you to put money into that tax deferred. So it's another spot we can tuck money into, and it's tax deferred. In other words, it's not going to show up as ordinary income on my tax return. So that's a nice little 1-2 punch. Max out the 401k, max out the flexible spending account. I'm taking home less. Maybe that'll allow me to fly in another lower tax bracket where I can start unloading my options, where I can start diversifying out of my concentrated stock portfolio. Other techniques that people might not be looking at directly or overlooking entirely. So flexible spending accounts are a giant way of deferring money so we're not paying the taxes on it if we don't have to be. And like I said, Eric, they're becoming more and more popular. I see them popping up more and more all the time. So that's one of the things I always go over in a review with an executive is, okay, are you in the FSA? And they, like I said, I get that look, like benefits. These guys understand stock. These women understand bonds and they understand investing. They get that. But when you start talking about benefits, it's a whole different conversation. And a lot of times they don't realize, like, understanding my benefit plan at work can really help me sharpen my spear and potentially fly into a lower tax bracket, which is what we always like to see.
So how does somebody use a flex spending account? I don't understand that.
Yeah, so you just sign up for it at work. It's part of your benefits, and you're able to put money into a flexible spending account. Again, the dollars are tax deferred, meaning it's not like you're taking it home for income. It's sitting in an account, and you can pay things like your health insurance premiums or deductibles or things like that come out of this money. So why not use the power of tax deferred money to pay medical expenses or for benefits? It's a great thing. And a lot of times when you leave the company, if you left money in there, it's portable. You can keep it in there.
All right. So the goal is here, Mike, that the people have listened to this and they're going to reach out to you. So the question is, they're maxing out their 401k, right? They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And let's say they're over 50. Mm-hmm. So now they're doing the catch-up contribution. Right. And they're also now doing the FSA. They're contributing to that so they can pay for qualified medical things, whatever those are. And I'm sure that the different departments, HR department, or whoever can tell you what can be purchased through that or what can be paid for. What else can they be doing besides those three?
Reaching out and calling a qualified planner to put it all together for them, Eric. That's, of course, I'm going to toot my own horn here, but I would love to meet with the people that are listening. Would love to have a conversation. But if you have your own advisor and he or she is of a caliber where you want to stay with them, which there's plenty of them out there, these would be the questions I'd ask. Does it make sense for me to, put X, Y, or Z into my 401k? And what about FSAs? If taxes are an issue for you. And even if they're not, it's definitely worth looking into. But, a qualified advisor will probably be making these recommendations. It's just interesting from my experience that I find that not a lot of people know about the catch-up contribution, and not a lot of people know that an FSA allows me to defer more money. So it's like, your cake. The 401k is the cake. The icing on top of the cake would be, your catch-up contribution. And then, you shove a candle on the top, and that's your FSA. And that's pretty much what most folks are going to be able to defer on an annual basis.
All right. Great stuff today. I appreciate it. I know we covered number 5 and 6, and 7 and 8 are going to be next time. And from what I've got on my notes, number 7 is it can help you identify risks you hadn't thought of, which is going to be very important for those that have not been able to do that or have not spoken to a professional to help them do that. And then number 8 is going to be it may make you more confident with your money, which I think all of us could use a little bit more confidence when it comes to spending or saving our money and doing a better job with that. So I look forward to that podcast. Obviously, before we end this podcast, you're going to look into your crystal ball, because you do that every time, and I love it. And I think I'm ready. I'm bracing myself for this.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I am, sir.
Then do me a favor. Just take a look, would you?
I see earnings season rapidly approaching. I see disappointing results. I see people on the phone calling Mike to find out how he can help them.
That's a good thing.
It just went dark.
And there it goes. That thing is fickle. I don't know if you've got a shop around you that you can take it to and see if they can work on it or anything. And I don't know.
If only I could harness the power of the crystal ball and just really understand how I can keep it active longer. It's fickle. Yeah, you're right.
Well, maybe you just have to charge it. Have you tried turning it off and turning it on again? That's what
I've rebooted.
IT people tell us.
Reboot your crystal ball.
That's right. Have you tried turning it off and turning it on? Maybe wait 30 seconds in between. Yeah. Okay. Well, it is what it is. It's a 50-50 shot at the possibilities, right? Always.
It's probably even, 50-50 every way you can make it 50-50. Yeah. But, I feel privileged that I get to glance into it once every couple of weeks with you, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely. And one day maybe you'll show me your ball, which just doesn't sound right for this podcast, but we'll meet in person and I'll be able to.
I'm going to sidestep that one.
That's a good idea. All right. Mike, thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course. It's your podcast. I'm glad you have me here.
Thank you. Yeah, I was waiting for that. There you go.
I know. And listening audience, the last thank you always goes to you. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Rewire and Retire podcast with Mike Guarino. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Mike comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends, family, and coworkers. Thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at Guarino Wealth Management, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on the Rewire and Retire podcast. If you want to learn more about how we can help troubleshoot your financial and retirement strategies, click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Guarino Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Investing involves risk, including loss of principal. There is no guarantee that a diversified portfolio will enhance overall returns or outperform a non-diversified portfolio. Diversification does not protect against market risk. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA/SIPC.